The CR Intrinsic settlement, $600 million. I mean, it's the better known of the two cases. Matthew Martoma is awaiting trial, basically, for this. What is at stake in this larger case still? Can Steve Cohen be targeted?
Sure. Well, this settlement, it's important to remember, it's all very complicated. This settlement represents the resolution of the SEC's civil claims with the corporate entity that employed Matthew Martoma and several SAC hedge funds that benefited financially from ill-gotten information from him. Now, his case is still ongoing. He is under criminal indictment, and he also has a civil case with the SEC pending against him, and he seems to be heading towards trial. So it doesn't really affect him directly, and it doesn't really affect Cohen directly either, because he has not been named in any of these cases.
Okay, now the second one, this Sigma Alpha $16 million settlement, and perhaps not as well known, but you have John Horvath, who is a former trader there, who is cooperating. So different at the moment from Martoma, who is not in that other case. So Horvath is cooperating, and there are two people at SAC Capital higher up the food chain that may be in hot water, right?
Right. Now, the settlement with Sigma Capital is similar to the CR Intrinsic settlement regarding Martoma. Horvath has been charged with insider trading in two tech stocks, Dell and NVIDIA, while he worked at SAC. He has pled guilty to those, and he is cooperating. So this is the firm's resolution of the civil claims pertaining to his trading. And one thing we learned when this was all kind of filed on Friday is that he had given information when he was working at SAC about these two stocks to two different senior portfolio managers at SAC Capital, and that was unknown. We really knew only about one, and so that's a bit of an expansion of this case.
Okay, Sheelah, hold it there. We want to bring in Fred now from Philadelphia. Fred Tecce, former federal prosecutor. Fred, how vulnerable, from your perspective, is Steve Cohen as a result or alongside of either of these two settlements?
Well, you know, the whole thing with Cohen turns on what evidence is the government going to be able to bring against him to indict him. Because when you go after a guy like Steve Cohen, when I was a prosecutor, I used to say, when you shoot at the king, you better make sure that you kill him. And so if you're going to indict Cohen, you better be ready to convict him. And the fact that the government has not indicted him or charged him in any of these civil cases says to me that they don't have any kind of physical evidence, any kind of email trains, any kind of transaction records to tie Cohen directly. From Cohen's perspective, though, the further you go up the food chain, the higher you go with these people, the more likely you're going to get someone who would like to avoid a lengthy prison term, and the best way to do that is to point a finger at Cohen and indict and implicate him.
Okay, and Sheelah, you and I were speaking this morning. I mean, there's other reports saying that, at least from Michael Steinberg, who is higher up the food chain, as Fred was just talking about here, is, at least it seems like, according to one local paper, getting more anxious about the possibility of being brought in. So what would this mean if Steinberg or the other person who is sort of higher up than John Horvath was, what does it mean if they are charged?
Well, Steinberg is considered a very high-value entity at SAC. He's been there since 1997. He was there when there were only a few employees, and he's very close with Cohen. So if they were to sort of get him, and many people believe he may be charged next, that would represent sort of the closest they have gotten to Cohen and the farthest they have penetrated inside the company. And
okay, so Fred, bringing you in on that point, I mean, we're talking about here John Horvath potentially, let's say, helping the government's case get two people higher up than he was. If we go back and cycle to Martoma, who is not giving up any information, what distinction can you draw, if any?
Well, I can draw a lot of distinctions. First of all, Steinberg is higher, and he is the one you want. And you have to understand something. In a criminal prosecution, you can't get anybody like Horvath or Steinberg to say, well, of course Mr. Cohen knew. They have to have direct, specific evidence that corroborates their testimony that Cohen knew. And if, from the government's perspective, if you have enough, your job would be to indict Steinberg, indict Plotkin, who was also named in this Horvath email, get those two guys. And just because Martoma hasn't pled guilty yet and agreed to cooperate, his case hasn't gone to trial yet. The way this usually works is the closer you get to trial, his lawyers are waiting. They're waiting for discovery, the information from the government, to see what kind of a case the government has. And if it looks like all his trial is going to be is a 3-week guilty plea, then you may very well see him cooperate and then point the finger directly at Cohen, because the government has alleged that Martoma told Cohen some inside information.
All right, Fred, thank you very much. Fred Tecce joining us there from Philadelphia. And Sheelah, before we let you go, Fred was talking about you need material hard evidence, but you were the one that brought this to our attention. that parts of SAC Capital, those emails are automatically deleted, right? For a certain amount of time that we're talking about here, there were 2-month windows where the emails are expunged automatically by their system, right?
Sure, there was a period of time where, as a firm policy, they were deleting their emails. So we know that in some areas, the government does not have as many as much email traffic as they would like. However, they have a lot of irons in the fire. This reveals that this whole thing is still sort of going strong. So we're going to see what more they can come up with. And a lot of it will hinge on whether they can get any of these people to flip and cooperate.